Woo! It's up! Welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk Ukrainic is pairing with you guys. America, I welcome thee. We are going to have a fantastic show, of course. All right, what are we going to talk about? We're going to dissect the Trump town hall a little bit more. Okay, get in there and do a little surgery, as my daughter says.
Like a high school science class from the 1950s.
Right.
Not from now. Not from now.
Okay, but in this case, it'll be the media and politics that is the frog that we are dissecting, okay? So, and a lot more where that came from, including finally, super babies. I told you. Okay, that's gonna be later in the program. Casper.
Well, why don't we begin with that ferocious debate in regard to CNN hosting that town hall?
I know you said earlier that you will not comment on the platforming of such atrocious disinformation, but I would. I think it was a profoundly irresponsible decision. I don't think that I would be doing my job if I did not say that. And what we saw tonight was a series of extremely irresponsible decisions that put a sexual abuse victim at risk, that put that person at risk in front of a national audience, and I could not have disagreed with it more. It was shameful.
Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is pretty viciously criticizing CNN and its decision to host Donald Trump in a town hall. Now that took place just one day after Trump was found guilty in a civil case involving the sexual assault of E. Jean Carroll, a writer, and the defamation of her after the fact. Now, there are criticisms coming at CNN, both internally and externally. For instance, CNN's own Oliver Darcy wrote about the internal criticisms, and I want to get to that. But before I do, Cenk.
Yeah, so look, I couldn't disagree more with AOC there. I think that it's a totally wrong-headed way to go. Guys, on the left, we should not be worried about other people speaking. We should speak and defeat their ideas, okay? So you're not gonna be able to shut Trump up anyway. He'll just go on Fox News, Newsmax, et cetera, et cetera. You think you're not going to platform him when he's the leading Republican candidate? Do we really think we're gonna keep the head of the Republican Party and a former president off of all of the airwaves for the rest of the campaign? That is an absolutely preposterous idea. I have a much better idea, but we'll talk about that as we proceed.
I believe that the meltdown that's currently taking place in response to that CNN town hall is more an indictment of the Democratic Party and its inability, in their minds, by the way, to beat the nonsense coming from Donald Trump. Because the way they're coming across, and I don't think they realize this, but the way they're coming across is, oh my God, we need to suppress him. We need to avoid giving him the opportunity to speak, because when he speaks, his message is so alluring and so popular that we couldn't possibly conjure up the policies and the courage to stand against him, right? Stand up against him. And like, I don't understand. The thing is, I think we should have a lot more trust in the independent voters. Really, the election's gonna come down to that. And what gives me faith in those voters is we've already seen how they've rejected Donald Trump in the midterm elections. Now, what do I mean by that? He didn't run in the midterms, right? But he kind of did. All of his endorsed candidates, yeah, they won the Republican primaries. And then they proceeded to lose in the general elections in various congressional seats that they ran for, or Senate seats that they ran for. And I mention that because have some faith in the American voters. The thing that I will say about that town hall that I didn't like is when you stack the audience, the town hall audience, with Trump supporters who applaud every terrible thing he says, it provides an illusion to the viewer that his ideas are popular.
Yeah,
that was a problem.
Well, I agree and disagree with you. I'll get to that in a second. But first, look, no one's saying, or at least no rational person is saying, that what he said about E. Jean Carroll wasn't atrocious, and how the crowd reacted wasn't atrocious. It was. But that doesn't mean you should censor it. And remember, guys, this is an old mainstream media trick done mainly to progressives. Oh, we don't like what you have to say. That's it, we're not allowing you on air. That's how they banned almost all progressives for the last 40 years from being on air. Now, do we say atrocious things like Donald Trump? No, we say things like, hey, maybe everybody should have health care. But to corporate media, that is considered atrocious. And they've, quote unquote, shadow banned us all these years. And your solution to that is, let's also ban Trump? No, let's get everybody out there and having an actual conversation, which the people who are saying like, hey, you know what? CNN should do a progressive town hall. Yes, it's exactly right. You counter with more speech. You don't go cower in a corner and go, oh, Trump said something. Yeah. So what? You have to run against the guy, which leads me to one of my main points, which is, why isn't Biden asking for 2 town halls? Why isn't he asking for one town hall? Why aren't his advisors livid that CNN is not doing a town hall for him? I'll tell you why. Because they don't want him out there, because they think he sucks. And so to Anna's point, when you say, I don't want Trump to talk because he might convince everyone, and I don't want Biden to talk because he's not good at it, well, I got good news for you. You're gonna lose. If you have Biden as the candidate and that's your attitude, you're definitely going to lose.
I mean, the Democratic Party has already determined on our behalf, without us having any say, that Biden is our candidate. That's it. No primaries. The DNC doesn't want to hold any primary debates, and we must support Biden.
No.
Okay, but
no.
Why? No, exactly.
No.
Why? Why do we have to sign on to someone? Look, the reason why Biden won, and the tactic he used to win worked the last time. I don't think it's gonna work this time. Remember what his tactic was? Just keep your profile low.
100%.
Don't go out there, stay in the basement. And by the way, give Trump enough rope to hang himself. And he did. Biden won. But that's not gonna work this time around, because the memories of how Trump bungled the coronavirus pandemic is no longer fresh in the minds of all American voters. Keep that in mind. And the other thing is, look, if you have already served 4 years as president of the United States, and most Americans have either noticed no difference in their quality of life from that transition from Trump to Biden, that's a problem too.
It's a massive problem.
Okay, that is an indictment on the Biden administration and the Democratic Party. Okay, this is not me saying I like Trump or I can't wait to hear Trump speak. This is me saying the Democratic Party is so weak and pathetic that they would rather suppress a message that's awful, that I do not think is popular with the majority of American voters, than actually, fight back against that message with policies that are more popular and more appealing to the American people.
It's pathetic that we think we can't, and hence we are trying to shut Trump up. If I was his opponent, I'd let that idiot talk all day long. Go ahead, Mr. Verbal Diarrhea. Tell us more atrocious things, and let me use it against you with independence. But we have total weaklings representing us in the Democratic Party. Oh, Trump, he said something mean. Well, why don't you say something back? How about you try that? All right, look, if you're wondering what my disagreement with Anna was, she's absolutely right that the crowd makes it seem like his ideas are really popular because it's a totally Republican crowd. And honestly, this is a trick both I've used and Ben Shapiro has used, and then Shapiro used it in the debate against me, where you stack the crowd. Once you stack the crowd, it makes a giant difference in people's perception. On the other hand, the part I disagree is, it's a Republican town hall. So Republican voters are gonna come. So like, what do you want to do a Republican town hall with Democratic voters?
No, I think it would be, in my opinion, and you might disagree with this, I thought it would be far more interesting if the audience was stacked with undecided voters, independent voters, right? Because we know that, look, Republicans are gonna support him. That's it, they're gonna support him, we know that. The elections always come down to the independent voters. So,
I hear you, Anna, and that's a great point.
And I think their questions should be asked.
Oh, and totally agree. And by the way, there's a lot of different formats. You could just do a straight interview. You could do one that Anna's suggesting, etc. But the reason why I don't think there's two reasons why I think it made some sense to do it this way is because we're not in the general election. We're in the primary section, and there's a very healthy primary on the Republican side. And now everybody else is getting their ass kicked, right? But they're in there, and there's a whole bunch of them, and DeSantis is supposed to beat them. So if you're in a Republican primary, you talk to Republican voters. Look, guys, we didn't like how the Republican crowd reacted. That means we learned something. Like, because everybody's shocked. Like, I can't believe they laughed at that stuff. I can believe it.
So I want to show you guys an example. So this moment definitely stood out. This is the moment that AOC was referring to. And to be absolutely clear, it is just one of the most atrocious moments of featuring Donald Trump, okay? So it was bad, but the audience's reaction is what made it even worse. Let's watch.
We had this great chemistry, and a few minutes later, we end up in a dressing room of Bergdorf Goodman, right near the cash register. And then she found out there were locks on the door, so she said, I found one that was open. She found one. She learned this at trial. She found one that was open. What kind of a woman meets somebody and brings them up, and within minutes, you're playing hanky-panky in a dressing room, okay? I don't know if she was married then or not. John Johnson, I feel sorry for you, John Johnson.
Mr. President, can I
No, but think of it.
I know you're recounting what she said, but Mr. President.
But let me just, if I could, because you asked the question.
This was a
just so
jury,
you understand,
though.
if I was walking in at the park, because I was very famous then, and I owned the Plaza Hotel right next door, and I owned buildings around it, I'm not going into a dressing room of a crowded department store. Then I say, if she was being raped, and by the way, they said she wasn't raped. Okay, that was her charge. It wasn't.
They found that you sexually abused her.
No, what? Say what? They did. They said he didn't rape her, and I didn't do anything else either. You know what? Because I have no idea who the hell she is.
But Mr. President,
I don't know who this woman
can I
is.
ask?
So he's mocking her. The crowd's laughing. It was horrible, obviously horrible. Our politics happen to be horrible. There's a portion of the country that minimizes sexual assault and abuse of women. And the fact that they were laughing, yeah, it was really difficult to take that in. But those people exist. They're part of the electorate in America.
No.
And pretending like they don't exist or suppressing them and hoping that it won't come back to bite you later, I think is ridiculous and is not going to help Democrats win a damn thing.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Hey guys, look, so it's terrible what he said, and I covered it live, and I told you guys instantly how terrible it was, and he smeared her later, etc. And the crowd's reaction, I said at the time, was even worse than what Trump said, because they're egging him on and they're laughing at her. Naturally, it's disgusting. But those are actual Republican voters, and so. And what's really important about this is that people that are in power, people in DC, people in the Democratic Party, people in media, they still don't get it. That's a third of the country. A third of the country absolutely positively thinks like that and doesn't think there was anything wrong with last night. They look at that clip and they don't think there was anything wrong with that clip. If you got your head buried in the sand and go, I don't see it, and no one else should see it, I swear to God, it's not gonna help. We have to get up and fight back. That's what helps. And guys, for the Democrats that are going out there, oh, well, Biden beat him last time. But when Biden beat him last time, Anna already pointed out Trump was in much worse shape, but Biden was around 50%. Now Biden's at 36%. That is a gigantic difference. So anyone, I get it. A lot of these arguments are made in good faith. I mean, you see that disgusting display on CNN and you get mad at CNN, I get it, right? But that's what I'm trying to tell you is there's a more productive way to do it. You hear an argument, oh, well, Biden did win last time. It sounds pretty good until you realize, well, except he's 15 points lower this time. And that's a monumental difference and almost guaranteed, and he barely won last time by 43,000 votes in 3 states. So it nearly guarantees a loss this time. So we're trying to snap people out of it so we can actually beat this monster instead of hiding in a basement.
I want to get to Oliver Darcy, who is an employee of CNN's. He put out a newsletter today, and the newsletter indicates that there are some people working at CNN who are pretty furious at their decision of hosting this town hall. So he writes, CNN and new network boss Chris Licht are facing a fury of criticism, both internally and externally, over the event. So, by the way, Licht totally rejects the criticism, arguing that it's important to hear from all sides, and that Caitlin Collins did a masterful performance. By the way, Caitlin Collins, I think, did the best she could given the situation, because Trump's not interested in a conversation. He steamrolls, he talks over people, and that's what he did to her. And she did a pretty good job fact checking in real time, but Trump's a steamroller. That's exactly what he did. So Brian Stelter, by the way, had a thread regarding how the new head of CNN has reacted to the criticism and what some of the internal criticism has been. You do not have to like the former president's answer, but you can't say that we didn't get them. Licht tells staffers, many of whom are angry about the town hall. Caitlin pressed him again and again and made a lot of news, and that is our job. He also says, while we all may have been uncomfortable hearing people clapping, that was also, this is what you said, Cenk, an important part of the story. And then he adds, because those folks represent a large swath of America, and the media screwed up by missing that part of the story in 2015 and 2016. And I think he's right about that too. I mean, it's true. I mean, I definitely missed that in 2016, which is why Trump's win was such a shocking event on election day of 2016.
Yeah. So look, I did videos saying, watch out, I think Trump's gonna win in 2016. And I said it on ABC, and the reason I said it is because ignoring these guys doesn't make them go away. I went across the country, all I saw was Trump banners. No, nothing in the swing states for Hillary at all. And everybody said, don't worry, Hillary is definitely gonna beat him. They were wrong that time, they're wrong this time. And look, I'll be honest, I wish we had a steamroller on our side. Now, when you're a steamroller, you don't have to say terrible things. You could say good things. You could say, hey, why don't we have paid family leave when 84% of Americans want it? Why can Estonia afford 82 weeks of paid family leave? We can't afford 1 day? Okay, you could steamroll in a positive direction, but the Democrats don't have any steamrollers, at least in Democratic leadership and corporate Democrats. They're all useless. They're like put.
Final thing I'm gonna say about this, because I think this is important. Trump was stupid enough to brag about how he's responsible for the reversal of Roe v. Wade, which is not popular.
Yes.
Give him enough rope to hang himself and then have a message that is far more popular than his. That would require Democrats to actually want to do something to improve people's lives. And I'm not talking about small businesses' lives or corporations' lives or executives' lives. I'm talking about ordinary people, okay? I'm not talking about government contracts to private companies to do infrastructure projects. I'm talking about real material change to improve people's lives. Give them something to vote for rather than something to vote against. And they're unwilling to do it. Right? I mean, Biden bragging about the incredibly weak policies that he passed. Pharmaceutical companies are already ready to go to war to scrap the Medicare negotiations for just 10 pharmaceutical drugs. And that's like one of the things that Biden likes to brag about.
Yeah, it's nothing. It was a total cover your ass operation that helped the drug companies actually keep 99.9% of their monopoly and our inability to negotiate prices. Biden is just a corporate servant. That's an overwhelming fact. It doesn't matter how many times mainstream media lies about it. No one's gonna believe it, they don't believe it now. You can say, oh, Jake, it's your fault that Biden's at 36%. No, I got news for you. It's called personal responsibility.
Exactly.
It's Joe Biden's fault that he's at 36% and all of his enablers among the Democrats in Washington. Hey, if you guys don't wanna kick Donald Trump's ass, why don't you move aside and let us do it?
All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about the big immigration story in the news today. Title 42 is expiring. What does that mean, and how does the Biden administration plan to respond?
Back on TYT. All right, let's go to our members. Peaky Dragon says, if Democrats were a real political party, they would be searching for a candidate who would best further the principles and policies that the party stands for. But the party is actually a combination of elitist social club and a Ponzi scheme. Biden's at the top of the pyramid, and that's all that matters. That's a near pitch perfect description of what's happening in the Democratic Party in Washington. So again, better than any national reporter in the country. So thank you for being a member, and thank you for actually understanding how politics works. On a fun note, Anadonic Voting says, happy birthday wishes to me. See, I already love that start. Okay?
Happy birthday.
That's right, happy birthday, okay? And you should be proud to celebrate yourself, why not? They say, I was born May 11th, 1985 on a Mother's Day and my parents' anniversary. I hope all the mothers, stepmoms, aunts, and people in feminine roles out there have a wonderful Mother's Day weekend and this Sunday, the 14th. Me too, so I double down on those good tidings, as it were. Sina Hogaboom says, damn, Anna's coffee cup is huge.
It is pretty big.
Okay, it is, but you're not supposed to focus on her coffee mug. You're supposed to focus on this one. Too Strong Coffee. TooStrongCoffee.com/TYT. I do plugs all day long. Okay, Squirrely C says, David Dole did a pretty good analysis of why it was a bad idea and pointed out Mehdi Hassan's interview. The former president is a master of gish galop. He specializes in overwhelming interviewers with a relentless barrage of falsehoods and drowning them in a deluge of distortions, deflections, and distractions. Every attempt that the host made, whether considered weak or not, to ask Trump questions was steamrolled with his bullcrap. That is all true. Do better, okay? So you're not going to ban him from all of media. Get that thought out of your head. By the way, sorry guys, for those of you who believe in not platforming bad guys, I don't agree. You have to fight them. They're gonna get their own platform anyway. Does it look like we can stop all of media?
I'll give you an example, and it's a little bit apples and oranges, but remember, everyone on the left was like attacking Milo, trying to get him banned, trying to get him deplatformed, and all that did was make him way more popular. And guess what? It was when he was on Rogan's show, when Rogan gave him enough rope to hang himself, he destroyed himself. And he basically ended up getting deplatformed that way. It wasn't because of the left protesting him that made him stronger. Do you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely. Look, people wanted to ban Kanye, and that's super understandable because he's an anti-Semitic piece of crap, right? But what does he do? He found an outlet anyway. He goes on Alex Jones, and what happened? Well, what Anna described. He comes on in like a black condom or whatever the hell that was, and talks about how he loves Hitler. So just look, David Duke came on here. I pulverized him, and we found out something. It turns out he doesn't hate Latinos, blacks, etc., immigrants, Muslims nearly as much as he hates Jewish people. And that was the harbinger of things to come. That's why you talk to people to learn. That's what news and media is supposed to be about, not censoring things so that bad ideas don't come out. They're coming out anyway. He won before. Come on, guys, let's go fight him. Back on TYT, Jake and Anna with you guys, and also Peter Angelo, who just became a member. Thanks, Peter, we appreciate it. Peter hit the join button below the video. I like to point down like my dad. He likes to use his hands a lot when talking. All right, Anna.
Let's talk a little bit about immigration.
Tonight at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time, the pandemic-era Title 42 public health order will end. Starting at midnight, people who arrive at our southern border will be subject to our immigration enforcement authorities under Title 8 of the United States Code. Here is what that means. If anyone arrives at our southern border after midnight tonight, they will be presumed ineligible for asylum and subject to steeper consequences for unlawful entry, including a minimum 5-year ban on re-entry and potential criminal prosecution.
DHS Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas is outlining what the Biden administration intends to do now that Title 42, the pandemic era policy that just automatically rejected asylum seekers, is expiring. Now, Title 8 is interesting, especially since they're now touting that. Title 8 is what the Biden administration had implemented in order to just reject asylum seekers, or a better way of phrasing it is severely limit and restrict asylum as people come to the border. So according to the Hill's reporting on this, what the Biden administration plans to do is take aim at those who travel through Latin America and other parts of the globe on a journey to the United States. The rule requires them to first seek protection in another country along the way that offers asylum. Mayorkas also talked about it during a recent press conference. There's a few more details that I want you to hear from him, and then we'll go to Jake. Let's watch.
This is the first president.
Our current situation is the outcome of Congress leaving a broken, outdated immigration system in place for over 2 decades, despite unanimous agreement that we desperately need legislative reform. It is also the result of Congress's decision not to provide us with the resources we need and that we requested. Our efforts within the constraints of our broken immigration system are focused on ensuring that the process is safe, orderly, and humane, all while protecting our dedicated workforce and our communities. I want to be very clear. Our borders are not open. People who cross our border unlawfully and without a legal basis to remain will be promptly processed and removed.
So I gotta say, Cenk, it seems like they're just extending Trump-era immigration policies, right? Because previously, if someone had entered the country through illegal means, let's say they did not go through a port of entry and instead crossed the border illegally, if they were caught by border agents, they could just say that they are seeking asylum, and then they would get their opportunity before a judge, an immigration judge, who would make a decision as to whether or not their asylum claim is legitimate. Trump changed that. So Trump implemented a policy where, no, you come in through illegal means, then we are not going to process your asylum claim. You have to go in through ports of entry. And then he, of course, had Border Patrol agents block ports of entry. So that was the one thing he did differently from what Biden is about to do. But I mean, I thought Biden was supposed to be the more humane individual here. In
fact, in one of the debates when prodded by Julian Castro, who was running against him, Biden claimed that Donald Trump is the first president to do this exact policy, and he found it to be horrible, atrocious, can't believe it. Well, congratulations, Joe Biden's now the second president to do it.
I actually want to show you guys the receipts. So this was on the debate stage with Donald Trump right beside him. Let's watch.
This is the first president in the history of the United States of America that anybody seeking asylum has to do it in another country. That's never happened before in America. That's never happened before in America. You come to the United States and you make your case that I seek asylum based on the following premise: why I deserve it under American law. They're sitting in squalor on the other side of the river.
And they will continue to sit in squalor on the other side of the river. That is exactly what will happen.
Okay, now let's talk about how politically irrational this is. I'll be kind. So you're gonna copy Donald Trump's policy that you're on tape, both in the primaries and in the general election, saying it was a terrible policy. Okay, so now, how many MAGA votes do you think you're gonna pick up with that? No, serious question. But you have to understand something. For all of you at home, you all think like, well, we all get it, Cenk. What's the hard part? He's not gonna pick up any MAGA votes, any Republican votes. How could he pick up any votes by copying Trump's policy, right? But you have to understand the reason why I'm saying it is because everyone in Washington thinks it's a brilliant policy. They're like, oh, bravo. You go right wing, because they think they're already in the general election, they're not worried about a primary. You go right wing and you pick up their votes. Why would you pick up their votes? They're already right wing.
It's a disaster.
But it's a thing that people in Washington have believed for 40 straight years. Why, by the way, there's a real reason why. Because all their donors are right wing. So they want an excuse to be right wing, and they're like, oh yeah, if you wanna, get votes, you do the exact thing as the other party? And what do? You also take energy out of your own base who now don't want to support you, and you seem like a hypocrite. You literally could not play it any worse.
Okay, so best case scenario, what's going through the Biden administration's mind is we're not gonna pick up MAGA votes, but maybe if we implement the same policies as Trump, maybe the conservative media will back off and stop attacking the Biden administration, which
they probably are that. Again, I'm gonna try really hard not to say dumb or stupid. So they probably are that irrational that they would think.
Irrational is a good word because that is an irrational thing to think.
Yeah, conservative media, now they'll go easy on you, Joe.
Okay.
Brilliant.
But guys, okay, first let me give you some more details about Biden's response to Title 42 expiring, because there's more to this. So as Mayorkas also noted in that press conference, quote, we are finalizing a new rule to encourage individuals to use available, lawful, safe, and orderly pathways to enter the US. The rule presumes that those who do not use lawful pathways to enter the US are ineligible for asylum. So again, if they don't enter through a port of entry, then their asylum claim isn't even considered. They're immediately deported and they can't even apply for asylum for 5 years. So the other thing that they're trying to do is get migrants to just try to get citizenship in some other country that they would otherwise pass through to get to the southern border. The other thing they're doing is, hey, how about you use this handy dandy app that's super glitchy, that has given us all sorts of problems, to just check to see if you would even be eligible for asylum. And that'll be more efficient, except it hasn't been efficient. And you're asking migrants, many of whom are being smuggled by human traffickers, okay? Many of whom might not even speak English. You're asking them to use a glitchy app to figure out whether or not they would be eligible for asylum. That's the big solution to all of this. It's ridiculous. And look, I'm fair in noting that the executive branch can't unilaterally solve this, okay? So what Mayorkas said in regard to the inaction of Congress was absolutely correct. That is one thing that he said that I agree with. Congress dropping the ball on this, and Republicans having this simultaneous meltdown over Biden's response is ridiculous. How about you guys do your jobs? But they refuse to engage in any type of conversation regarding legitimate, robust immigration reform. So if you're not gonna do your job, you can't then turn around and cry about the migrant crisis. And to be sure, they're expecting, this is from the Biden administration, they're expecting at least 13,000 people to come to the southern border every single day. So that's a crisis. And to just have this, honestly, in their minds, easy solution of going back to what Trump did is not the right answer.
So look, guys, there is, of course, something you could do. I always like to do constructive critique, not just tear things down. So could Biden do something differently? Of course, you could say, look, I need funding for thousands of judges at the border, because what we need to do is, we're America. When people come to us, we give them a fair shot, okay? That's something that his base would love to hear, and a lot of independents would love to hear. But we need to process these quickly, and we need people to say, okay, you've come in, we're not just gonna let you run into the country, there's a border, okay? So you're gonna have to come, but you get to make your case for asylum. But in order for us to do that efficiently enough, so we're turning people around, right? Accepting whoever makes sense, and unfortunately not accepting folks who don't have a legitimate claim, well, then I need judges. Then you ask the Republicans for it, and when the Republicans say no, which they will, then you turn around and go,
exactly.
The problem at the border is the Republicans' fault.
Exactly. 100%.
They won't let us process these guys efficiently. Instead, they're letting them just run into the country because they won't let us give us the resources we need.
You would need a strong leader to do that, and Biden ain't that guy. And final thing I'll say about this is, Biden's entire campaign in 2020, his whole platform was, vote for me because I'm not Trump. Vote for me because I'm the one who can beat Trump. Vote for me, I'm the more decent, humane person. How exactly does he plan on pushing that message when some of the main policies that he attacked Trump on are the very policies that he is now falling back on, like this immigration policy?
Yeah.
Little bit of a liability for his re-election campaign, no?
Obviously, except for everyone in Washington. So look, that's the last thing I'll land on, which is, to people in Washington, breaking your campaign promises is a savvy thing to do, right? So for example, they always give credit to savvy politicians who say one thing in a primary and then turn around and say the opposite in a general election. They're like, well, in the primary, you're trying to appeal to your base, so you lie to them. And then in the general election, you're trying to appeal to centrists, etc., so you lie to them. And then when you get into office, the savvy politician doesn't do either one of those things because he lied to all of them. No, that is not winning politics. I know every phony in Washington thinks it is. And it's because they never intended to do anything for you guys. All they're ever gonna do is serve corporate rule. But if you had an actual fighter for you, a real representative, yeah, they're actually supposed to do the things that they promised on the trail, right? But to people like Joe Biden, actually delivering on your campaign promises is just a joke, right? It's a punchline, ha. People are so dumb, they'll never figure it out. And mainstream media will just cover our ass. No, you're clearly breaking a campaign promise. We see you, brother. We see you.
All right, let's talk a little bit about this report regarding the violence toward various abortion providers in states that still have abortion available for women. The National Abortion Federation has completed its annual report on basically the number of violent attacks and threats that abortion providers have dealt in a given year. In this case, they're looking at 2022. And unfortunately, what they've noticed is a pretty significant uptick in violence toward abortion providers, specifically in states that still have reproductive rights in place, that still allow for abortion. So here's what they found. If you take a look at this graph, it'll give you a sense, a comparison between 2021, that's the light blue, and 2022, that's the dark blue. And as you can see in every category that's noted on this graph, the number of these violent acts or violent threats has increased in 2022, and that includes arson, that includes invasion of abortion providers or abortion clinics. Even bioterrorism threats has increased from 0 last year to 4 this year. You have death threats and threats of harm, went from 182 last year to 218 this year. Far more burglaries, there were 13 last year. I'm sorry, 13 in 2021, I should say, and 43 in 2022. Same with stalking, you see an uptick there. There was only 28 in 2021, and now there was 92 in 2022. So you can see that trend. And what the report also notes is that since abortion providers shut down in various states that have effectively banned abortion, the anti-abortion activists have gotten far more active in states that still have legalized abortion. And so we'll get into some of those numbers in just a minute. But Cenk, it is incredible to me, right? Because this kind of violence doesn't even seem to register in the national consciousness these days.
Exactly right. Look, it's a form of terrorism. They're trying to intimidate people. There's hundreds of cases of stalkings of these poor women at their most vulnerable state when they're making a super tough and personal decision. And these people come in and terrorize them. But since they're Americans, and about a third of Americans agree with them, the media is super scared to point it out. They just point it out and here's there, okay, it happened. But do they talk about it as a thing we should be concerned about, a phenomenon? No, we're gonna hurt people's feelings, okay? Now look, one of the things that I can't stand is the double standard. So they're allowed to do that kind of violence and it's considered perfectly normal. Like, oh yeah, there's every once in a while there's a bombing of an abortion clinic. Oh yeah, every once in a while they murder a doctor who performs abortions. Imagine if the left did that to them. If we went into churches that consider themselves pro-life, every once in a while we killed them. We bombed their churches, etc. By the way, do not ever do that, okay? So that would be monstrous and everybody would lose their minds. These terrorist liberals, we have to do something about this phenomenon. The right wing does it. Nobody barely a peep.
No, you're totally right. Actually, I'll give you an example, which even though we condemned it on the show, we did not agree with it at all. It certainly did not rise to the level of bomb threats and stalking, right? We covered that story at San Francisco State University where an athlete was giving us a talk to basically discuss how she disagrees with Leah Thomas's participation in NCAA athletics, right? Now, look, whether we agree with her or not, we don't agree with her, but nonetheless, like the reaction from the students there was ridiculous. I mean, they barricaded her in a room for hours. She couldn't leave until the cops came to release her. There was outrage about that, and there should be outrage about that. But why is there no outrage about the fact that abortion providers are dealing with like all these threats, including burglaries, bomb threats, I mean, arson, bioterrorism? Right? There's no coverage of this stuff. If it weren't for this report, I wouldn't even be aware of how widespread this was in 2022.
Yeah, and look, the double standards are everywhere. And the fact that people in media don't point it out drives me crazy. So like the crisis pregnancy centers, they're just flat out allowed to lie. So there are these conservative things, they're pretending to take care of you when you're pregnant and you're considering an abortion. When you come in, they lie to you about everything, and they tell you, oh, abortion can cause breast cancer. They should make things up. Oh my God, environments will take over your house if you get an abortion. I mean, just like crazy stuff. I made that one up, but who knows? They make everything up, right? And everybody goes, oh, that's totally fine. That's totally fine. If you went into Planned Parenthood and they just started lying to you, and they're like, oh yeah, everybody should get an abortion because after getting an abortion, you'll win a lottery. People are like, what? That's outrageous. They should shut them all down, shut them all down. Crisis pregnancy centers are funded by the government in a lot of these red states. We, the taxpayers, pay for them to lie to women in their most vulnerable position, and somehow that's normal. I don't find it normal. I find it outrageous.
So let's talk about what's happening in states like California, for instance, where reproductive rights remain intact. As I mentioned, the anti-abortion activists, the right-wing zealots, have focused their attention on these types of states, right? So in states where abortion is protected, stalking, for instance, increased by 913% from 8 cases in 2021 to 81 cases in 2022, okay?
So as they shut down more clinics, the crazies are targeting the smaller number of clinics that exist, including in states where it's legal. They're like, oh yeah, good, now we have less targets. We can concentrate our forces, our terrorists, against these particular clinics.
Let me give you a specific example that was outlined in a HuffPost report on this. So Julie Burkhart, president of Wellspring Health Access Abortion Clinic in Casper, Wyoming, and also co-owner of another abortion clinic, Hope Clinic in Illinois, recounted how weeks before the Dobbs decision came down, anti-abortion extremists broke into her Wyoming clinic and set the building on fire. She and her team were set to open the new clinic in just a few weeks, but the fire destroyed everything, forcing them to renovate for another 11 months before they could finally open and see patients. And look, if you go back several decades, this is not uncommon. These kinds of threats, these types of acts of violence have happened for decades, and it is interesting to see how the double standard plays out, how certain acts of violence not related to anti-abortion terrorism get lots of attention, but this kind of stuff, barely any. The National Abortion Federation has tracked incidences of violence and disruption since 1977. In that time, anti-choice extremists have committed 11 murders, 42 bombings, 200 arsons, 531 assaults, 492 clinic invasions, and 375 burglaries.
So guys, if you think terrorist is too strong a word, I mean, what do you call a firebombing? What do you call an assassination? I mean, that's literally the definition of terrorism, to do that to civilians for a political cause. So an easy example, if a Muslim fundamentalist came into a prominent church and firebombed it, what do you think would happen? The whole country would talk about that nonstop. It would be referenced for not years, but decades, right? Did you all hear about the Wyoming firebombing? I'm sure some of you heard it because you care about the news, etc., and you're progressive and you care about women's issues. But I bet you tons and tons of you didn't even hear it, and you guys pay attention to the news more than anybody else does. Barely a story at all, definitely not a national story. They firebombed the place. But in America, when the right wing does terrorism, it's fairly normal. So we don't make a big deal out of it. That's disgusting.
What's also disgusting is primary care consolidation, which is making healthcare even worse in America. We've got that story and more coming up. Don't miss it.
All right, back on TYT, let's go to members. Rep Cat, the political cat boy, says Anna looking classy AF today. Love the hoop earrings, they're perfectly pixie sized.
Thank you. This is what I wear when I'm at home. I just felt like keeping it cash today.
All right, yeah. That me too. That's why I'm keeping it cash today. No earrings, also what I wear at home. Okay, Art Guy writes in, I do wonder if CNN's monumental act of hubris was not just lust for ratings, but a desire to pull viewers from Fox as if to say, hey MAGA, we're being nice to your dear leader, please like us. Guys, I don't want you to get me wrong. There is many ways to look at an event, and it doesn't have to be that only one perspective is correct on that. So I think you should have Trump on and you should aggressively challenge him, right? But that doesn't mean that CNN didn't do it for the ratings.
They totally did.
They did. Yeah. And it doesn't mean that they didn't do it to appease right-wing viewers and try to attract them. Do I know that that's part of their motivation? Of course!
It's a for-profit media company, guys. Of course,
And by the way, what happened, it worked. The audience that for the town hall was 6 times what they normally average. It was twice what Fox News got, and CNN never beats Fox News, and 3 times what MSNBC had in that hour. So if they were looking for ratings, they got ratings. By the way, which that means no matter how much criticism, they're gonna do it again and again and again. So you better get ready and fight back. Although with Biden, you know he's not going to. Carrie B says the problem is they don't give progressives a platform, they treat us with disdain. Carrie,
I agree, yep.
100% right, 100% right. Let me counter his speech and then we'll see what happens. Rich Thurman says Trump would not have appeared unless the audience was handpicked. Rich, I actually disagree with you. And by the way, guys, every once in a while we can disagree, and it doesn't mean we don't like each other, okay? It just means, hey, I look at it a little differently, okay? So in this case, I think Trump was desperate to get back on CNN. I think if CNN said, you know what, we're gonna have 3 libs attack you all night long, he would have been like, all right, let's do it, okay? So they didn't need to do this. Again, as I explained earlier, the nuance is, I think you got to do Republican town halls with Republicans, right? But at the same time, for the first one, they had many, many options. They just chose this one. MA's 54321 says, Biden is gonna run on basically changing nothing, AKA Trump light. And when he loses, he'll blame progressives, at which point progressives need to declare war on the party establishment. Progressives have 0 excuse to support this loser. Well, again, I agree 100% with you. I wish the progressives we sent to Congress also agreed. But I get nothing but Biden love from them, as if Biden is a progressive. We all know that's a joke, guys. Our job is to be honest with you guys. And I'm not gonna wait for him to lose. Believe me, we're gonna act earlier than that. So don't lose hope. Hope is on the way. John Arwood Richter writes in YouTube memberships, I wholeheartedly canceled all my CNN subs today. Adrian Vixen says, are they going to give Marianne Williamson a town hall?
They should.
There you go, Adrian. That's the right attitude. Why aren't they giving Marianne Williamson a town hall? They absolutely should. That's what should trend on Twitter. Let's go fight back, and Marianne's at least in the fight. I give her a ton of credit. We'll be back. All right, back on TYT, Cenk and Anna and Cherry Vino with you guys. Thank you for joining, and you could do likewise. Hit the join button below the video on YouTube or tyt.com/join. By the way, also check out our podcasting network. So get our shows that way, and there's some audio-only shows as well to check out. All right, Casper.
I want to talk a little bit about primary care in America, which of course was already deeply flawed, but unfortunately it's getting worse and will continue to get worse. Primary care in America is being consolidated as these major companies and corporations buy up doctors' groups and even private practitioners who are operating, their own private business. Now, this is an issue because the consolidation usually translates to less options and poor care. And we're also talking about primary care doctors who typically, in the medical industry, get paid the least and are incredibly overworked. But when it comes to the profits they bring in for hospitals, and in this case corporations, let's just say that big capital sees dollar signs. So this is what's happening. It was a great report, by the way, in the New York Times. This is a good example of some of the good reporting they do. And just to give you a sense of how widespread this has become, between 2010 and 2011, the total capital raised for private investment in primary care in the United States increased by a factor of more than 1,000, from 15 million to 16 billion with a B. Okay, so that gives you a sense of how much money is being poured into this. And I'll tell you who some of the biggest players are. CVS Health, of course, with its sprawling pharmacy business and ownership of the major insurer Aetna, paid roughly $11 billion to buy Oak Street Health, a fast-growing chain of primary care centers that employs doctors in 21 states. And Amazon's bold purchase of One Medical, another large doctors group, for nearly $4 billion is another such move. Now, remember, there's also this privatized Medicare model, which is something else that it's like a perk for these corporations because it allows for them to essentially overcharge the Medicare system through Medicare Advantage. I'll give you the details on how that happens in just a moment. But Cenk, just when you think that the privatized healthcare model, the for-profit healthcare model in America couldn't get worse, here we are. They always find ways to make it worse.
100%. So in this case, when you see some of the top finance people in the world pouring in 1,000 times bigger investment into an area, into a sector, that means they find that to be an attractive place to invest. Why do they find it to be an attractive place to invest? Because they think that there are efficiencies to be found. Now, what does that mean? And efficiency means, well, we're gonna cut our costs and we're gonna raise our prices. And that because they think that the costs are too high, the services are too high, there's too many employees and not enough revenue. So that's why they rush in and they pump up the prices on you guys. They cut the employees so you have less employees to help you. And then they cut services to you and they go, boom, efficiencies.
Yep.
So I just made a lot more money by making sure you got way less and you paid me more for it. That's why they're getting 1,000 times the number of investments in there, because they figured out the government ain't gonna help you. Nobody's gonna help you. We could just come in and rob you.
By the way, for our audio audience, I totally misspoke even though I read it clearly. The numbers that I gave you earlier was from 2010 to 2021, not 2011. And so yeah, it went from 15 million in 2010 to 16 billion in 2021. Now, I want to give you a few other examples, including insurance giant United Healthcare, which is of course another clear example of these consolidated services. So United Health Group owns the major insurer that has nearly 50 million customers in the United States and oversees its ever expanding subsidiary, Optum, which has bought up networks of doctors and medical sites. Optum can send patients from one of its roughly 70,000 doctors to one of its urgent care or surgery centers. You guys see how this game is played, right? So essentially they use the primary care doctors to feed more business into the other medical services provided by this like medical conglomerate. That's a good way of thinking about it, right? So if we're thinking about CVS Health, for instance, the primary care physicians who work under the umbrella of CVS Health would then write the prescriptions and urge the patient to fill their prescriptions where? At Costco or CVS Health? They'd fill the prescriptions at CVS, one-stop shop. Find ways to have certain elements of the business feed more business to other elements of the business. Like that's the way that they're doing this.
Yeah, that's called synergies. And guys, look, I said they use this to rob you in the past. So what do I mean by that? That sounds, mainstream media would say that sounds hyperbolic. These are lovely, legitimate business interests here. They're just improving efficiencies, etc. Right? Well, the government is supposed to protect you. That's what regulations are. There are laws that apply to businesses. And there's supposed to be a cop on Wall Street too. And they're supposed to say, hey, here's the minimum number of services you have to offer if you're gonna do X. Hey, you can't create a monopoly. You call it a synergy, I call it a monopoly. It depends though, it depends on the facts, the circumstances, etc. But there's supposed to be a cop on that beat to look out for you guys, especially on healthcare where your life is on the line, right? But all the cops, well, they did defund the police. It was just the police on Wall Street, right? And so now, because the Republicans did that, there's no one here to protect you. So they will increase those prices, they will lower the services, they will do all of these things. They'll direct you to only their stuff, not anybody else's stuff, because they're gonna make more money doing that, and no one's stopping them.
So Elizabeth Warren is urging the Federal Trade Commission to take a closer look at these deals. Because of the consolidation and the monopolization of the healthcare industry, she feels that the FTC might be able to do something about this. We'll see. I mean, so far, the FTC clearly hasn't blocked any of these acquisitions through antitrust grounds, but Elizabeth Warren has noticed it. I would like to see a more aggressive fight in preventing this from happening, from preventing this consolidation from happening. And then the final thing I wanted to just quickly get into was how this is also robbing the taxpayer through Medicare Advantage, which is the privatized model of Medicare, right? It might be publicly funded, but it is privately run. That's how Medicare Advantage works. And so the growing privatization of Medicare is alluring to these corporate giants. More than half of Medicare's 60 million beneficiaries have actually signed up for the privatized model of Medicare Advantage. And the federal government is now paying the insurers, the private insurers that run it, $40 billion a year. And guess what they do? They overcharge, they overbill. That's like the whole model here. Amazon's One Medical scooped up a practice specializing in Medicare Advantage. Only about 5% of One Medical's 836,000 members are enrolled in that federal program, but roughly half of its revenue comes from that tiny slice of patients, according to its 2022 financial statements. It's insane.
It's so frustrating. Look, I'll end on a ray of hope. Normally most political stories end with no hope, but in this case, Elizabeth Warren might not be wrong. We'll see. But at least we got a fighter's chance because we're always fair. You see us criticizing Biden a lot, but there's a couple of things he has done right. His labor board is strong, and the person he put in charge of antitrust is pretty strong.
Lena Khan, right?
Yes. So let's give it a shot. Let's see what happens. Open mind, and there are good folks in there. And by the way, guys, please do nuance. Like if folks tell you, I don't get it, are you for Biden or against Biden? The answer should always be, it depends. What's the policy? Did he do it well or did he do it poorly? So in this case, there's a little bit of hope, and that's about as much as you could hope for in today's politics.
Let's take a break. When we come back, I've got more news for you all, including Dianne Feinstein. She needs to resign, like immediately. There was a pretty terrible incident that happened. I'm gonna share it with you. Later though, we're also gonna talk about some union busting, both in the state of Florida and also at Starbucks in Ithaca, New York.
And don't forget about the super babies.
Right.
Those are also coming. You're about to watch some behind the scenes footage of the Young Turks. Ooh. Now these are partial videos. If you want to get all of them, you become a member, go to tyt.com/join, and you'll get all the behind the scenes of me, Anna, John, JR, a little bit reality show like, tyt.com/join, and enjoy this. You know what you're seeing behind me? Jersey, hold. Watch me flip this camera. However I flip it. Do I flip it like this? No, I just took a picture. I'm bitzing right now.
What?
Behind the scenes.
Oh, okay. For members? I don't have my face on.
She doesn't have her face on, folks. Oh, that's JR's ass right there.
You can't take 5 minutes off, can you?
No, I can't, Johnny. Bye. I said it was live stream, but I was lying. It's not a live stream. It's just for members. Bitsy, this is my cat. You know what his name is? Kiki Cat. Animals are innocent. Control room and the insanity is obviously there.
Right now, as you can see, I'm directing or tech directing. I'm so happy to be here.
This is what like a Labor Day beard looks like for Cenk. Man, you're a Young Turks viewer if you recognize me like this.
Oh, thank you. You are the one person in my life I would love to meet.
What's going on, guys? This is a Bitsy or a BTS or behind the scenes with Hassan Piker, AKA Woke Bay.
Oh, hi, I didn't see you there.
I have finished my show, The Damage Report, and now I get into a really awkward time of the day.
When I'm sitting, the control room is right there. so I can see Bart.
And this is the Pittsburgh office, by the way, referred to often as the boiler room.
You see how it's ripped? Is it super unprofessional to wear that at a business meeting? Or am I like cool, rebel?
I just finished doing the power panel and I'm fired up.
What do you do for TYT?
Not a whole lot.
If you're frantically tweeting at us that something's broken, thank you, because I'm fixing it.
And thank you for being a TYT member.
Super last thing, because there's always got to be a super last thing. Oh, that was disastrous. This has been behind the scenes, behind the scenes.
Welcome to Indisputable. I'm your host, Dr. Rashad Richard. We got a lot happening today. But what do we do on this show? We tell the truth. You know why we tell the truth? Because the truth is simply indisputable.
Rashad, great to be here. Congratulations on the new show. And I gotta let everybody know that Rashad and I go way back.
Here's the pattern that we see in all of these Karen stories. They think they own stuff they do not own. Now, where does that come from? I don't know, maybe slavery. Maybe they think they should still own black people.
This is what happens when Karens weaponize the police.
When you're used to privilege, equality seems like oppression.
It hits you in a certain way when someone is holding you against your will, treating you like you're a criminal and you're an innocent person. This is something that black people face no matter where they are.
A stronger black economy lends itself to a stronger, greater economy. Don't think it's exclusive of you, it's inclusive of you.
What's your beef with critical race theory?
It adds more fuel to the fire of the racist tendencies that we already have.
We have a generation of problem solvers that can remedy the problem if they are properly taught what the problem is.
You know who created redlining in this country? It was the white liberal.
I don't give a damn who created it. If it's a racist policy, Shelley, here's what I don't know. I don't know. See, there you go filibustering, brother. You're scared of this truth, but you're gonna get it, though.
We've been around for about 20 years and we have about 20 billion views. Am I proud of that? Hell yeah, I am. We put out 20 billion messages in a bottle. Have we helped to move now 2 generations, millennials and Gen Z, to become progressive? Yes, those numbers are real. We moved generations. Were we the only ones? Of course not. But we have been the largest online news show for now decades. TYT checking out with you guys. We got more news.
Unfortunate news, to say the least. Senator Dianne Feinstein returned to the Senate just yesterday after she had taken months off following a shingles diagnosis. She needed some time to recover. Unfortunately, according to Politico, there was some pretty damning testimony from an anonymous Senate staffer who claims that Feinstein mixed up Senators Tim Scott and Raphael Warnock. Now, this happened in 2021. And it's a little bit of a disaster. So let's get to the details. So the story comes from an excerpt of The Big Break. It's a book, The Gamblers, Party Animals, and True Believers Trying to Win in Washington While America Loses Its Mind. It's by Ben Terrace, and Politico, Politico wrote about a part of that book that recounts this anecdote, okay? So about a year earlier, Feinstein had approached Senator Tim Scott, stuck out her hand, and told him she had been rooting for him and was so happy to have him serving with her in the Senate. Now, of course, Tim Scott is a Republican, Raphael Warnock is not. They're both black, yes. I don't know what to say about this other than this is bad, okay? She should not be in the Senate. She is obviously in mental decline. She has a condition. She couldn't do her job for the last 3 months. And then they wheeled her in yesterday, and it was not a good sight. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah, so a couple of things. Look, first, to be fair to Dianne Feinstein, she might have actually been congratulating the Republican because she loves Republicans.
She's done it in the past.
Yeah, and she's a very conservative senator from California. Doesn't make any sense, never made any sense, but the establishment, including establishment media, has been covering for her this entire time. So I actually don't find it implausible that she would thank Tim Scott, who's a very right-wing Republican, right? Secondarily, let's keep it real, there might be another fair reason why she did it, which is ironically super unfair. It might be that she just couldn't tell them apart because she's racist, okay?
Yeah, but we don't.
So look, I don't know. And by the way, I don't know that that means 100% that she is racist. Now, part of the reason why I don't mind bringing it up as a possibility is because Dianne Feinstein did fly the Confederate flag when she was mayor of San Francisco. In San Francisco.
Wait, what?
Yeah.
I didn't even know about that.
Yeah.
What?
No. You know why you don't know about it? Because mainstream media has been protecting her for decades.
She flew the Confederate flag where?
In San Francisco. City Hall. Okay.
What?
I know. This is insane, guys. It's really insane.
Oh my God.
So the debate is, does Dianne Feinstein agree with the Republicans so much she's thanking one of the most radical right-wing senators for winning, which is a legitimate possibility in my mind, or she has no idea who anyone is anymore, and that was 2 years ago. And we told you guys, look, the reality is, which of those two is it? I think it's the one that she's in mental decline. It's not I think, it's definite. Everyone that talks to her says she's in mental decline. She does, when they announced that she was going to retire eventually at the end of her term, she didn't even know it. When the reporters asked her, she's like, oh, I didn't know that.
Oh my God.
It's just, come on, this is humiliating. But look, I am very tough on the media all the time, and I ask the media to actually ask the right questions. In this case, they have finally begun. The thing that I've been saying on air now for a long time is, who's the actual senator from California? Because it's not her, so it's one of her staffers. So even Politico did a story about it, and Ken Klippenstein at The Intercept just started publishing the staffers' names and going, which one is it? Who's the actual senator, okay? So that is a great question and should be asked, because it definitely ain't Dianne Feinstein.
So how did Tim Scott react to that? I actually think the way he responded was incredibly kind, because he didn't correct her or anything. He just kind of went with it. So it was obvious to Scott and the staffers in tow that Feinstein had mistaken the South Carolinian for Raphael Warnock, the newly elected Democratic senator from Georgia. Scott had played along. Thank you so much, he had told Feinstein. According to the staffer who told me about the incident, your support means a lot. Feinstein's office declined to provide comment for this story. There's another excerpt that Politico made available from the book that I referenced on a phone call with other members of the office. Perley had let loose, airing concerns for what felt like 10 minutes. He talked about the coworkers who had touched his hair while he sat at his desk, how the senator hadn't learned his name or spoken to him despite 5 years of service to her, how the chief of staff seemed to be operating as a shadow senator, okay, the chief of staff operating as a shadow senator, since the actual one was, in his opinion, no longer mentally there. And by the way, the reference is to Jamarcus Perley describing his time working in her office.
Yes, so look, the sick thing about this is that the Republicans are not making a big deal out of this because they think, well, we have a lady who can't, a senator who can't participate in a lot of these hearings, which is great for us because it slows down judicial nominations. She can't fight back against us. Plus, she's really conservative. So even when she had a sound mind, she never wanted to fight back against us. This is kind of gold for the Republicans. But why don't the Democrats replace her? It's easy. Governor Newsom would do it. He's a Democrat. It's the easiest thing in the world because they don't want a progressive in there, and they're worried that anyone, by definition, will be more progressive than Dianne Feinstein, because both her, when she was of sound mind, and apparently her chief of staff, who's now the current senator, are both deeply conservative. So they're like, oh, we love that. So they just want to keep a corporate Democrat in there. And by the way, what did the Democrats ever do anyway? Nothing. So they're like, what do we need her for? We don't do anything. So the judicial nominations, some people are a little upset about. So let's pretend that we care about that, but not actually do anything, which is, of course, the route that they have settled on. You would know about all of this Democratic incompetence and lies and deceit, etc., if we had a functioning press in this country.
I did not know about the Confederate flag. Like that is insane. In California, she's in Northern California too. Anyway, Jesus, okay. Final thing that I have to tell you guys all about. So I mentioned that she returned to the Senate. This is what that looked like. I think this is crazy. And I think a lot of other people agree that people are saying this is crazy. But what's even worse is that even though she was physically back in the Senate yesterday, she still took another day off. And that's relevant, right? Because she is not able to perform her duty as a United States senator. As Manu Raju reported, Dianne Feinstein, who returned to Washington yesterday after recovering from an illness since February, missed the first vote today. Dick Durbin just told me, no, he doesn't know when she will return. I hope she comes back soon. All right.
Okay.
I mean, the Democratic Party, man, is just abysmal and embarrassing. And just, I think they love having, it seems manipulative to me. It seems incredibly manipulative. It's like having a vote they can control. And then Durbin's nonsense about like, we can't ask her to resign because if we ask her to resign, then the Senate Judiciary Committee, we're in a lot of trouble. Promote another Democrat from the Senate to the Senate Judiciary Committee and get the job done. Why is that so difficult?
Yeah, like I said, they don't want to get anything done.
They don't.
And that's the bigger story that no one's talking about because they're all pretending in Washington that the Democrats have done so much in Biden's term. One last thing, just to clarify on the Confederate flag, she didn't decide to just put up just the Confederate flag by herself for fun. They put up the flags of American history, and it would get taken down every once in a while because people are super mad that this Confederate flag is flying in City Hall in San Francisco. And every time she would replace it with a new Confederate flag, and they were like, "Please stop replacing the Confederate flag." And she didn't. She kept replacing it. So I'm giving you the full context so you know the full story. And then the media pretended all these years that she's a progressive when she's never, ever voted that way.
All right, let's move on. Let's talk about Florida. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis is facing a lawsuit by the largest teachers union in the state to prevent the implementation of some of the anti-union policies that he and the Republican state legislature are championing. Now, before we get into the details about the lawsuit, let's just do a little refresher on the policies that the teachers union wants to fight back against. So the legislation known as Senate Bill 256 bars most unions representing government employees from receiving dues directly from workers' paychecks, so no direct deposit. It also requires that those unions maintain at least 60% membership in their workplaces to avoid being decertified and losing their collective bargaining agreements. Now, 60% membership sounds like it's not a big deal if you happen to live in a state that values labor unions and makes joining the union compulsory, right? So I'll give you an example. When I was working at a Ralph's supermarket when I was 18, the workers there were unionized. I had no choice. I had to join the union and pay dues. And that's a way of ensuring that the union isn't destroyed and dismantled as a result of people being able to make the decision. In states like Florida, workers can make the decision as to whether or not they join the union or not. And this effort to essentially avoid the automatic dues payments, basically having it automatically taken from your account, and instead using checks. Like you'd have to mail in checks to the union to pay your dues instead. Obviously, that's a way to make it even more difficult for the unions to stay afloat, because workers would have to take the extra step of literally writing a check and mailing it in.
Yeah. Look, guys, this is actually devastating. There's two giant problems with this. One, it will devastate the teachers' unions for sure, because I know through my experience in business, like if you create what's called friction, it makes something way less likely to happen.
Yep.
If you take it out of their checks, that's normal. There's no friction at all. They don't have to do anything. They don't have to actively do anything. If you say you have to actively send in a check every week, at best, half of them will do it. At best. And then that challenges the organizing of the labor unions, because then they're gonna have to organize even better to make sure everybody's sending in their checks, which, by the way, that is also gonna cost them money. And meanwhile, this is all money taken out of their coffers that DeSantis figures can't be given to Democrats. Okay, and that's why he's doing this. That leads us to the second giant problem, which is he's doing it for only this union that he doesn't like.
Yes.
He's not doing it for the police union, he's not doing it for the firefighters union. So he's selectively saying, if you're a union that supports me, I will pass laws in your favor. If you're a union who doesn't support me, I will pass laws against you. So number one, that's a hideous thing to do. You're supposed to represent all of Florida and not just attack your political enemies through the law. You're supposed to attack your political enemies during a campaign. You're supposed to make a case against them. But when you're governing, you're not supposed to say, I'm punishing you with the people's money or their laws, etc., because you're against me politically. And he's brazenly doing that here. And by the way, if you're a right winger and you claim that you're for all of these things like, oh my God, I want the government out of my life, I hate government tyranny, etc. This is him picking favorites here and saying, I'm gonna use the power of big government to crush my political opponents. If a Democrat did that or a progressive did that, the right wing would lose their minds.
Now, he did not address the double standard with government unions here, how he is having this policy impact teachers unions, but not police unions or firefighter unions and all that. He didn't address that. But he did try to justify the union busting tactics in the next clip. So let's take a look at that.
We're going to sign SB 256, which is paycheck protection. You have this situation with school unions. You have a right to not do it, but what they do is they provide authorization forms, blanket authorization for deduction, automatic deduction of dues. So even though a lot of teachers don't do it, many teachers feel pressure to do it. And so what this bill does is it protects them. It says no automatic deduction for school union dues. If you want to join, you can, but you write a check and you hand it over. That is going to lead to more take-home pay for teachers, because they're not going to have as many deductions in their paycheck. It's also something that's going to allow the state to look at how many people are joining, and if you don't have a sufficient number of joining, then that should not be the bargaining unit if you don't even represent the majority of people.
So the teachers union in Florida does manage to get a little over 60% union membership. But understand that making it more difficult to pay the dues might actually impact that percentage, and he knows it. This is also an effort to decertify the union by making it more difficult for those teachers to pay the union dues. And by the way, if the teachers don't want to be part of the union, they don't have to be part of the union. They don't have to pay dues, because in Florida, joining the union is not compulsory.
Yeah, and so they call that misleading the right to work state. So guys, I'm actually a little bit more mixed on that as a matter of policy, but I want you to know both sides. So yes, it's true. It is compulsory and they do take it out of your check, and a lot of people say, well, I don't want that, right? And I remember when I was super poor and I was trying to get into radio, and then you have to join a union, and then they take a big chunk in dues, etc., right? And you're barely struggling to make ends meet, and oftentimes not making it, okay? So there are some arguments against it, but you have to remember the arguments in favor of it, which is that, hey, in this case, the teachers union, but it could be the cops union, it could be any union, right? Negotiates on your behalf and gets you a much higher salary. Well, they did the job then. Then they got you a higher salary. And so you should pay your dues for the good work that they did. Instead, this allows the selfish to go, no, I'm gonna take the higher wages, but I'm just not gonna pay the dues.
The free riders.
Yeah, I'm gonna let the other 60% who are the good guys pay the dues, and I'm gonna free ride off of it. And that's why that is built in, that protection is built in, and DeSantis just took that protection away. And look, I'll prove my case again, because if we did the same thing, if let's say imagine a progressive, I guess it becomes a mayor of a large city and defunds the police union in this same exact way that DeSantis is. Not the police, but the police union goes, hey, no, you could all send in your checks every week. Go ahead, send in your checks every week, right? What would happen? The whole country would be talking about it. They would say that Democrats are anti-crime. There'd be a giant controversy. How you can't do this, this is barbaric, our beloved police. Why not our beloved teachers? I think we should protect the teachers as well, and I don't think that should be a controversial position.
Totally agree. We got to take a break. When we come back, we'll talk about what Starbucks is up to and how one of their favored union busting tactics is just shutting down stores that have unionized. That and more coming up.
All right, back on TYT. So first of all, don't forget Nina Turner's show. Make sure you're checking out Unbossed, youtube.com/unbossedtyt. Check it out live at 4 o'clock Eastern. Check out the clips. Just check out one clip, use the QR code, you'll love it. Okay, so 4 o'clock Eastern, Unbossed with Nina Turner. Jonathan Davis is a new member on YouTube, and he asked, if the choice is between a giant douche and a turd sandwich, what are we supposed to do? How do we fight for change when everything is so corrupt? Feels hopeless. Jonathan, don't worry, I'm in the hope business, brother. Okay, now the thing is though, I'm never gonna give you false hope. So we have been in a ebb lately. They looked like there was no way out. You're not wrong for seeing the facts as they are. We are caught between the corporatists and the fascists, right? And our wing has been depleted in a lot of different ways. In fact, the other day we showed you a clip of some Democratic lobbyists laughing about how we've defeated the progressives. Hold. Okay, so I'm just telling you, there is hope. Give me a minute here. Hold. So this is like one of those things, if you're my age and you watched wrestling when you were a kid, and Hulk Hogan would put his hand up if he's on a hold to see if he's still conscious. Second time, third time, whoa, sick dear Lord. Okay, so hold. Mikey 3343 says, my car today was hit while parked. The woman who hit it had abortion rights stickers on her car. I showed her TYT and Anna's rant. She loved it. Great day. That story took a twist. I love how it took a twist. And I love that you shared it. Thank you, Mikey. And I like that you shared the story and the rant, and that you got the person who hit you to like it. That's an amazing story. Daniel Dakota writes in, I love watching both you all, even though we disagree on a lot. We both hate the establishment and are honest actors. Keep fighting the good fight. Huh, interesting.
I love that.
Interesting, Daniel, way to keep an open mind. Axel the Ghost says, somebody I know believes the entire government agreed to kill people instead of believing corporations paid off the government. Propaganda is amazing. That is exactly right. By the way, that is part of the reason why right-wing media spreads those conspiracy theories, right? Like, oh no, don't look at the money. Don't look at the money. Oh, I bet they're trying to kill people. Oh, they're so evil, right? That's the trick they always use. Or they're trying to kill babies. They're trying to kill people. No, it's all about the money, Lebowski. It's the money. Hildegard's Goat says, now we promote a candidate for president liable for sexual abuse, rape, also tax fraud, business fraud, and insurrection. Give him media, but not the White House. How must the world view us? By the way, my birthday too, 5/11/1967. Love you. Hildegard's Goat, happy birthday, love you back. And we're supposed to fight back and point out all those things, but the Democrats almost always focus on the hateful parts, which I understand, but they should be focusing on the fraud and how he's a spoiled little baby who robbed you guys to get his riches, okay? But the chances of Democrats figuring out a correct strategy is low. Athletes LLC says 100% Cenk and Anna, we need to learn the truth about others. If we don't, we will never know the truth about ourselves. Keep up the fight, TYT forever. Love you. All right, gotta come back in a second. Back on TYT, Cenk and Anna with you guys. I gotta read this one. I know it's a self-indulgent, but JL's a new member. He's been around for a month on YouTube, and he says, this has to be one of the greatest anchor pairings I know of.
Oh.
Wow, thank you, high compliment. We appreciate it, JL. We appreciate all of our members. You make this show possible, and we love you for it. Let's do it.
Well, let's talk a little bit about what Starbucks is up to in New York.
What's disgusting? Union bossy. What's disgusting? Union bossy. What's disgusting? Union bossy. What's disgusting? Union bossy.
I love the gentleman in the video who's confused about what's happening, but don't worry, I'm gonna explain. So those were workers, Starbucks workers in particular, in Ithaca, New York, walking off the job after they discovered that Starbucks will be closing the only 2 remaining stores in Ithaca by the end of the month. Now, why are they doing it? Well, one can suspect it has something to do with the fact that these are the stores that have voted almost unanimously to unionize. And if that weren't bad enough, Starbucks has already been told by the National Labor Relations Board to reopen the 3rd and final Ithaca store. But instead of doing that, they decided to shut down 2 of the other Ithaca, New York stores. So it's suspected that Starbucks is targeting these Starbucks stores in Ithaca because they have decided to, unionize. Let's give you more details on that. Ithaca is the only town to have unionized every single one of their Starbucks stores. The 3 Starbucks stores voted nearly unanimously to unionize in April of last year, despite a pretty brutal union busting campaign. A few months later, Starbucks closed down one of those stores, blaming maintenance issues, which is hilarious. However, workers at that store have claimed that the store had maintenance issues for years, but Starbucks only closed it after they had voted to unionize and they had gone on strike. So that, by the way, made headlines in the media. I'm sure Starbucks didn't like that. In November, the NLRB found that Starbucks had closed the store in retaliation for the union drive, and the NLRB's regional director requested a court order forcing the company to reopen the store, but gave no timeline for which Starbucks would have to comply. And as far as we can tell, no further court action has been taken by the NLRB. And I think that's an issue. I hope they get active on this immediately. Now, this week, Starbucks essentially flipped the bird to the NLRB by closing down the 2 other remaining unionized stores. Before I give you more details on all of this, Cenk, any thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, Starbucks at this point is being so obvious. They're not trying to hide it. It's so over the top. They're basically saying, screw you. Like, we don't want a union, we're gonna fight it 2,000%. We're gonna fight it by legal means and maybe not so legal means. We're gonna fight it by any means necessary. But when your brand was supposed to be a little bit, tiny bit progressive, like, people kind of wanted to get together, had a feeling of community, etc. And Howard Schultz, their founder and the CEO a number of times, he recently came back to specifically to fight against the unions, has been billed as a progressive my whole life. Then he thought about running for president. Turns out he's massively conservative. It's all been hype. Well, you're kind of shredding that brand, and that's okay. Maybe you want a new brand, right? And maybe you're gonna go for MAGA or something.
Corporate coffee.
Yeah. Hey, have at it, Oz. Or right, maybe you're going for the establishment thing, right? We love corporations at Starbucks. Good luck with that campaign. I bet that'll work great.
So let's hear a little bit from the workers over at Ithaca. So according to one local Starbucks barista by the name of Ella Mae Robinson, The corporate representatives told workers that the store would be closing due to decreased sales and understaffing. However, Robinson says that the store is staffed to run with limited operation times, which, by the way, can obviously impact sales and revenue, and that it has also had better sales than a lot of the stores in our area for the past year. So even given the limited hours of operation, they're still performing better than other stores in the area. But of course they're gonna be lied to. You're right, Jake, it's so obvious. All 3 stores that unionized in Ithaca, come on.
No, I'm sure that was a wild coincidence. No, guys, in these cases, the reason why it's so obvious is because they're trying to send a message. So they're sending it to their employees, you better not try this, otherwise you're gonna lose your job, which is the oldest union busting trick in the book. I mean, that's the core of the union busting practice. So they know that it's also going out to the general customers, and they know it's doing some damage there. And actually, I think the last time I checked, it had done significant damage to their stock price, right?
Yep.
And that it wasn't worth it. But I think they're on an ideological bender here. And so they're trying to send a message, don't mess with us, we will crush our workers.
I think
well, by the way, the message has been received.
I think they've made a calculation, right? Their calculation is, okay, there might be some short-term losses in the stock market as we bust these unions and close these stores. By the way, 40 workers have lost their jobs as a result of these store closures. But eventually the markets will forget, and in the long run, we will be able to maximize our profits by refusing to give our workers a seat at the table. That's the calculation that they've made. Now, final angle to this story that I have to share with you because of how absurd it is. So students from Cornell have been taking action against the university for selling Starbucks products in their dining halls and cafes. I'm super excited to hear that the students are active on this. They're making a statement in solidarity with the workers. Now, today students sold coffee from a local unionized coffee shop called Gimme outside of their dining halls to raise funds for the workers. And here's how the university responded to it. They called cops. We've got video.
Oh.
No tabling allowed out here at all, period. End of story.
Also, did I hear you correctly? The police are on their way?
Yes, they are.
We've got a cafe in here. They're taking business away from them?
So the problem is that we're taking business.
I don't know, but that's also part of it.
You think that's why the complaint maybe
it could be? I can't speculate.
Okay. Could you confirm that the complaint did come from Cornell Dining?
Specifically? Yes, it had something to do with brands, coffee, right?
Yeah, we think it's pretty clear that Cornell Dining had an issue with selling coffee outside, and that was the impetus for the claim.
Sure. Pretty much. We're a union as well, so trust me, we understand what's going on with this.
I mean, cops do love their unions.
Yeah.
So who knows?
I mean, that was classic late stage capitalism.
Totally.
Where they call the cops to arrest people for taking business away from a corporation. Is that a crime now? Are we gonna start getting arrested? You didn't shop enough and you didn't pay a high enough price for this product, that's why you're under arrest. I mean, this is insane, right? So look, they're like, oh, you're providing an alternative. Wait a minute, wasn't that supposed to be capitalism? So late stage capitalism isn't actually capitalism, it's corporatism. Where corporations have won, they're machines that have taken over our society, and they say, no, we don't even believe in competition or free markets. We crush those, we crush our employees, we crush our customers, and then we call the cops on you if you complain. So this is outrageous. By the way, you want an alternative, twostrongcoffee.com/TYT, okay? It's a progressive brand, it's organic and fair trade. There you go, Starbucks, enjoy that. I can't believe I didn't make that plug in these 1,000 Starbucks stories we made. Okay.
I want to challenge you a little bit on that competition is capitalism angle. Let's talk about that in the bonus episode.
Drums in the bonus episode. By the way, I still call myself a capitalist, but like I said, late stage capitalism is not capitalism, it's corporatism.
Do you live your life like a capitalist every single day, Cenk?
No, I do not, unfortunately.
TYT.com/join to become a member in case you're not a member and you're interested in I don't know if it's gonna be a debate. I have some difficult questions I want to ask.
Difficult questions are going to be answered by me in the postgame. I think you guys will like it. More capitalism. Hit the join button below the video on YouTube if you want to become a member. Look, last thing I'll say. Capitalism doesn't mean you have to crush everyone. They're just choosing to do that. And so Starbucks has huge profits. They're not teetering on the edge or anything like that. This isn't the steel industry in its worst situation. No, they had a perfectly healthy business there right now, purposely like almost trying to destroy themselves because of this ideological situation that they're in. And then, so the question is whether they're gonna get away with it. And that question is whether customers remember or not. And so I'm asking you to remember. And what I'm doing now, this is a new philosophy and policy on my part. Instead of boycotting things, I'm shadow banning them. Okay, so right away, there you go, there's a shadow ban, okay? So if I've got a choice of different places to drink coffee, I'm not gonna choose Starbucks anymore, okay? I'm gonna choose something else. By the way, that's called capitalism, live with it.
All right, let's live with this next story, which involves science, and I might bungle it, but I'm gonna do my best, okay? You ready? Super babies. We're finally gonna talk about the super babies.
Yes.
Thanks to advancements in technology, well, IVF technology. So thanks to advancements in IVF technology, babies with DNA from not one, not two, but 3 different people have just been born in the United Kingdom for the first time.
Somebody's getting pregnant tonight.
Indeed, indeed. Now, fewer than 5 such babies have apparently been born, period. And this has to do with a new technique that's meant to root out genetic disorders. It's called mitochondrial donation treatment, or MDT, which for the purposes of this discussion, I will be using, MDT. Okay, and the goal of this process, as I mentioned, is to prevent parents from passing on genetic disorders to their children. And those genetic disorders include the following: muscular dystrophy, epilepsy, heart problems, even some intellectual disabilities. You get the point. Now, for affected women, natural conception is often a gamble. Some babies might be born healthy because they inherit only a tiny proportion of the mutated mitochondria, but others may inherit far more and develop severe, progressive, and often fatal diseases. About 1 in 6,000 babies are affected by mitochondrial disorders.
Yeah.
Okay. I am gonna get into a detailed explanation about how this all works in just a moment, but so far, Cenk, are you with me?
I'm 100% with you, and I'm with this procedure, although it is going to lead to our extinction.
No, it's not.
Yeah, it is.
Everybody calm down.
Okay, right here, I'm gonna explain. First of all, what I screamed, somebody get pregnant tonight, the old Tracy Morgan thing, and apparently by 3 different people tonight. So Tracy's gonna have to work that, and Maury Povich is gonna have a difficult time here. Who's the father? Well, actually, he's the father, and he's also the father. They're taking DNA from 3 different people, and I get why they're doing it. I think it's legitimate, and it always starts legitimate. And I'm not sure that I wouldn't do it, right? If you know that you have some deadly disease and you can simply just take out that portion of the DNA and put in healthy DNA, are you sure you wouldn't do that for your kids? Because the kids might get that deadly disease, right?
Yeah, I mean,
right.
Great.
So it seems obvious, right? Until you then go to the slippery slope, which is definitely going to happen, where they go, yeah, but I also would love for him to be over 6 foot tall.
Yeah,
I really would love that. And I would love for him to be really strong. And you know what, while we're at it, why don't we make her really, really smart?
Great, so if this process ends up being widely available, then if parents want to use it for those purposes, it should be considered elective and it shouldn't be covered by insurance.
Yeah, well, here's the rub though. Okay, so well, first of all, I agree with you, I hear you on that. But once people start doing it, who's gonna do it? The rich are gonna do it, okay? And well, even if we don't do it in America, although we were the first to do it in this particular case, again, legitimate for really serious diseases, but now it has begun. So even if we don't do it, the Chinese will, the Koreans will, it's North Koreans, etc., Russians, Germans, I don't know, but it's always gonna be the rich in those countries. And now we're gonna have 2 different sets of gene pools. The ones that have been pre-selected and the ones that are the natural ones like us. And you think the ones that are the natural ones like us aren't gonna get pissed at the super people? No, envy's gonna kick in. We're gonna get super mad.
God, we had finally conquered envy, everybody.
Okay.
And now envy's gonna kick in.
No,
competition starts kicking in.
But then
the dial of ideas is turned to the hot position.
But Anna, okay, but what happens when that happens? The super smart, super strong humans go, maybe we don't like you messing with us, and maybe we're way smarter than you guys. But ding, that's literally what we did to the Neanderthals.
Isn't that what the AI robots are gonna do before they can?
No, the super babies will fight the AI robots after we're all gone.
Great, at least it'll be entertaining. Anyway, I'm not that concerned about it, to be honest with you. I'm just not.
Okay, I can nearly guarantee you that it's gonna happen.
Okay, well, here's a video explaining more of how the process works.
Nuclear DNA, which defines characteristics like personality and eye color, is given to the embryo from the mother and father. Then a tiny amount of mitochondrial DNA is provided by the third parent. This makes an embryo which contains both healthy mitochondria from the donor and nuclear DNA from the baby's mother and father.
Awesome. Okay, here's more.
But remember, so they're taking out one strand of DNA and putting in another strand of DNA. It doesn't affect anything else. But if you take out that one strand, you could also take out other strands. And we're off to the races.
We get it, Cenk. You can make elective, changes.
Humans.
Yeah, no, I get it.
I'll give you one last example, okay? Dogs and wolves. They all started as wolves, and then humans started breeding them.
Damn right.
And we started breeding them to make them.
To make Charlie.
Exactly, to make them like us more and to completely serve us.
I wouldn't put it that way.
Okay, all right, but that's kind of what happened. And they went from badass wolves to cute little puppies that run around after us going, I love you, please love me back.
Charlie is deep down inside, and he knows this, he is also a badass wolf.
Okay, fair, but then what do we have? Whether we love dogs, I get it, right? I'm not hating on dogs.
Maybe there will be better humans in the future.
Okay, but what we did have is many different species. That's the thing you cannot argue with. The dogs are no longer wolves.
I don't know if this technology or this advancement is gonna lead to different species. Like dogs are still, well.
They're within the same group, right? I'm using very unscientific terms here.
I know, I want to stop talking before I embarrass myself.
No, and it's okay, guys. Look, if we're using the slightly wrong terms, that's not the point. The point is the general direction that this is going. And the general direction is inescapable. And so yes, what we did was old school science, which is, hey, take that wolf that's a little docile and take that wolf that's a little docile, have them breed. Oh, look, we got a wolf that's a little bit more under control. And we did that thousands of times, maybe millions of times until we got all these different breeds of dogs.
Evolution, but forced evolution in a way.
Kind of forced evolution though. It's different than natural evolution. And now we're doing forced evolution.
In that case.
Yeah, I hear you, but now we're doing forced evolution with humans.
But like, what are you concerned about? Like, what's gonna happen?
Anna, and we keep calling them smart babies or super babies, they're gonna grow up, okay? Once you have superhumans and normal humans, I know humans, there's no way they're not gonna fight. And the superhumans are very likely going to win at some point.
Listen.
I know it's far in the distance,
humans love to fight anyway. And I think the potential upside of this significantly outweighs the potential downside, at least as far as I see at this moment. And by the way,
no, like I said, I might use it.
If you have functioning governments, you could, do things like pass regulations that limits what this could be used for. But
I hear you, but others are not going to pass those regulations.
Exactly.
And don't get me wrong, look, I would, like I said in the beginning, I might do this if I had one of these rare diseases, etc. I'm not having any more kids, but if I did, I get why people are doing it. I totally get it. I'm not judging them 1%, okay? But there has to be a line somewhere, and I certainly wouldn't do it for things that were just optional, height, weight, etc. So, but people won't listen to my standards. They'll have their own standards. The superhumans are coming.
All right, we're gonna take a break. When we come back, Doja Cat has something to say about her music.
Meow.
Live like a capitalist every single day.
All right, back during the social break. New member Peter Angelo writes in, thanks for keeping it real to all the Dems there. Thanks, Peter, we appreciate it. Anthony McClendon says, hi guys, I'm so proud of Rashida Tlaib for not backing down on holding the Nakba event and of Bernie for hosting it. It was disgusting to see how some refer to any show of empathy for Palestinians as anti-Semitic. Thank you for bringing that up, Anthony. Really appreciate it. Totally agree with you, Rashida Tlaib and Bernie Sanders, American heroes for that. Ricardo Chucky says in the YouTube member section, this is the only channel that dares to criticize capitalism. Love you alls. Yeah, we do, and we do it, I think, in a sophisticated way and not like, hey, black and white, this is all evil, this is all good. No, it's a complicated issue, and capitalism bleeds into corporatism, and we're the only ones that make that distinction too. And Ricardo, thank you for being a member and supporting that. Terrence Grogan with an interesting personal story. I'm a solo family doctor. I left big hospital system medicine, and I'm making 1/3 of what I made before. Wow.
Wow.
I have about 2,000 active patients. I get lots of visits from groups wanting to, quote, help me. That's really interesting. I almost want to find out more about that. Not almost, I do.
It would be an interesting interview, to be honest with you. Like, I want to learn more about that.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for sharing, Terrence. Appreciate it. Serwin Celeste says, I've worked for these health corporations, hospitals, specialty pharmacies, BCBC, Humana, Cigna, Express Scripts my entire life. They've been, quote, synergizing for generations. Nothing has ever changed. Right, they're just getting squeezing and squeezing that dumpster we're all in, unfortunately. Barry Motiva says, I like this show. I might be a progressive. That's my favorite comment of the day. Yes, you might be a progressive, you just don't know it for a lot of folks. But anyway, Barry, in your case, even if you know it, I appreciate it. Exoteric says, thank you, TYT, for being mad at the right things. I lose my mind watching any corporate or mystery donor-funded media. Keep fighting the good fight, you all. Thank you, we really appreciate you saying that. And Paul Smith with a good point about the panel, the town hall. That's why women do not say anything when they get treated like that. That's definitely true. That's why it was important to do massive pushback against Trump when he was smearing Eugene Carroll. Dave Ide says, I just can't anymore. How can you ever think that giving him a platform like that was a good idea? Dave, it's okay, we disagree. And if you say, hey, you know what, I disagree so much, I don't want to be a member anymore. I totally get it. To each his own, no problem. What we're trying to do here is create an atmosphere where smart, caring people get together and talk things through. And hopefully we convince each other and we have disagreements where we don't hate each other. But you gotta do what you gotta do, and that's totally fine. Whether you like us, don't like us, support us, or don't support us, we love you either way. And thanks for ever being here, and I'm good with it, so God bless. All right, guys, we'll be right back. All right, back on TYT. One of our members, Sight Dragon, says, to be fair, Feinstein was around when the Confederacy existed. All right, anyways, new members, CMD619 and Daniel Ducote on YouTube. We appreciate it. You know what they hit, you know it. They hit the join button below the video. Everybody else, no matter where you're watching or listening, tyt.com/join. All right, Casper.
All right. Pop artist Doja Cat, a chart topper, I should say, to say the least, is making headlines after she admitted pretty aggressively that her first two albums, or last two albums, I should say, were just a money grab, and that people were suckers for liking that music, which I kind of respect it.
Really?
I do. Okay,
that's
hold on. Okay, my feelings are mixed. But who cares about my feelings at the moment? You need to know the details of the story. So let me give you those details.
I also have feelings, by the way.
Okay, so let's start with her tweet where she says, Planet Her and Hot Pink were cash grabs and y'all fell for it. Now I can go disappear somewhere and touch grass with my loved ones on an island while y'all weep for mediocre pop.
Jesus. You said it, man.
No, I respect it. I do. I respect it. I do. Okay, so I like her music. I'm just gonna keep it real. I like her music. So
she's dissing you.
Yeah, she's dissing me.
Yeah.
And you know what? I respect it.
Okay, I like that you respect it, even though you.
I do.
If you didn't like her music, I was going to fight you harder. But I like that it applies to you, and you still don't mind. Look, guys, it's too much, right? I love honesty. I love honesty, so I hear you on that. But you all fell for it. Like, you're just directly insulting the people who liked your music as suckers. No, that's a bridge too far.
Okay, so look, it depends on how her fans respond or react to it. The way I react to it is, no, I get that in the grand scheme of things, this is quote unquote mediocre music. But mediocre music tends to be enjoyable.
Yeah, I don't care at all.
Right?
Look, you
I
don't want to know.
good hit workouts to her music.
Yeah, you don't want to know what's in my iTunes. You don't want to know. Okay.
Right.
So, and by the way, if the shoe's on the other foot, and she said, if I was like in your situation, I don't know Miss Doja at all. Okay, I'm familiar with other cats. I'm not familiar with her work. Okay, but Boomer says. Anyways, but yeah, I liked garbage pop music when I was a kid. Okay, I'm a material girl.
Cenk liked that song. She move her body like a cyclone.
Oh, I love that song.
Yeah.
I love that song. And if you made that song so that a sucker like me could buy it, mission accomplished. Thank you. I appreciate it. I don't mind at all, right? I don't care what your intent was. I just care whether the song is good or not. But having said that, needlessly, I don't know if I'm allowed to use this term anymore.
Just don't then.
Okay, I'll take out the first one. Needlessly slapping your audience across the face a bit too much. It's gratuitous.
What's the point of having FU money if you don't do an FU here and there?
No, 100%. I agree with that too, okay? Back in better times, Joe Rogan said that to me when we had lunch together, and I hadn't heard that before. That was the first time I ever heard it, and I was like, oh damn, that's really good. I like that.
Right.
Okay, so but I think you're supposed to say F you to the people who are like had wronged you or you don't want to do their crap or whatever it is. I didn't think you were supposed to say F you to your own audience.
Look, I totally get where you're coming from, and not everyone is going to react to this the same way I reacted to it. And insulting your fans is maybe not the best way to go. Maybe there was a way to word this tweet that left the insult part out of it. I get that. However, the reason why I respect it is because, I don't know, I feel like to some extent, although we're in a completely different line of work, I feel like she's touching on something that we can empathize with, which is, clearly she wants to do or put out music that isn't as marketable as the pop music she's put out, right? And so that pressure to appeal to a mass audience with content that isn't 100% you is definitely a pressure that can get frustrating, right? So for instance, like, sometimes when we do stories, I don't want to have to do the throat clearing and the endless caveats before I give you my opinion, because people are sitting at the edge of their seats waiting to be offended, right? Like, that exists, it's super annoying, and audience capture is also a problem, right?
Yeah, but we don't do that.
We don't do that. No, but we do the caveats and the throat clearing because people intentionally misrepresent what we're saying and go after us all the time.
See, that's funny because I went in the exact opposite direction as you, because of what we do too. So let me explain that, and then I know what you're saying, and I think it's going to lead to what she's actually doing, which I think I solved. Okay.
Oh, you solved it.
I solved. So don't worry, guys. So I think that so when I looked at it, I love our audience. So I didn't like that she was insulting her audience. Like, I felt like I would never do that, and like, because your audience is who made you, and so when I say that, it's not an empty thing. Like, if the audience didn't like what we were doing, we wouldn't be here, right? We'd be in our basement, right? We'd be doing a show no one liked in our basement. And so we're not quite, like, we're kind of you guys. Now, at the same time, Anna's right. You can't let audience capture happen where the audience is unfortunately misdirected in sometimes, some portion of the audience in some ways. You have to be strong enough to say, guys, I love you, but that's not the direction we should go, and here's why, right? And most shows are not that strong, and apparently a lot of pop artists are not that strong. I think who she's really mad at and why this seems misdirected is probably her managers and the business interests involved.
1,000%. And look, to be fair to us, we did make decisions to put out the content that we want to put out, right? Which is why we're not millionaires. Which is why I didn't sign on to a cable news network or a network that would obviously have far more resources, which translates to much more money in pay, right? But that's the trade-off I did. Doja Cat went in a different direction. She did the marketable pop music that blew up. For instance, let me give you some numbers. So Planet Her arrived in 2021 and hit '2 on the Billboard 200 and has spent 97 total weeks on the chart, currently sitting at number 85. 2019's Hot Pink peaked at number 9 and spent 155 weeks on the album's chart. This leaves her debut, 2018's Amala, in the non-cash grab department. Now, according to a former Forbes reporter, Doja Cat earned $25 million in 2021 alone. Just do the mediocre pop music, girl. Go for it. I mean, just keep doing it, milk it, and then when you get to a point in your career, put out the music that you really like. That, I don't know, it might actually do really well. That's the thing.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, look, I think she just misdirected it. I could actually be totally on her side if she picked the right target. Because I think what she's saying is, I did make enough money, I'm good, now I'm gonna do the music I love. Because I guarantee you, I don't know if it's specifically her manager, but the business interests around her, the music record labels, etc., are all telling her, keep making more money, keep doing the pop stuff you don't like, keep doing it, and this is her rebellion going, no, I made enough, I don't need to make more, I'm gonna do the stuff I love. If she stuck with that, that would have been great, like a cat fight, if you will, against business interests. We're all on your side. But she framed it as if she's fighting her own audience. And to me, that's a little disastrous.
Let me give you another example. So she put out another tweet writing, quote, "My comment section on Instagram used to be only positivity because I was doing what everyone wanted me to do. And I love that I can see through all that BS now. It's nice. Much love to everyone else that's been down since day one. I appreciate it," with a heart.
Yeah, but if you had gone in that direction and they had attacked you, then I'd be 100% on your side. I'd be like, hey, leave her alone, okay? What did she call them, the children on Twitter or something like that? And so, but you attacked first. That's why I just can't get behind it. And I was positive that Doja Cat was some sort of cryptocurrency.
Why get her? So you like mediocre? She's accusing you of liking her mediocre music. So what? Like, why is everyone so delicate?
Well, that's definitely true. I agree with that.
Come on, everybody.
Right?
Okay, I like crappy music. I like a lot of crappy house music. And you know what? I jump in it.
Okay, I can outdo you. I don't even know what music is crappy. I can't tell good music from bad music.
You like the Cyclone song.
Okay.
Which, but to be fair, was played on the radio incessantly for years.
Yeah.
It probably still is. I don't really listen to the radio anymore.
Well, look, I tell you, I'm sorry, but that's another Akon song that I have on my album. And at the end, it turns out he's not actually sorry. It's a twist. You should listen to it.
Oh my God.
Okay, do I have Barbie Girl on iTunes?
Oh my God.
Do I?
Finally, when asked at what point she felt like she'd let go of the mentality of like doing what others wanted her to do, she said this: "After Coachella, when I felt so tired of doing a bunch of stuff I didn't believe in and not telling my side of my story with my music, when I realized I hadn't done anything personal and that I was cranking out digestible pop hits for children on Twitter to get into fights about."
Okay, no, all right, I'm positive. She changed the title of her upcoming album. Why did she change it? That's not fighting against her audience. Her audience didn't pick the title. I'm positive the business guys picked the title.
Yeah. She's
rebelling against them. Doja, call me. I'll tell you how to do this right.
Don't call him.
She's not gonna call me. I got news for you, okay?
All right, bonus episode's gonna be amazing, okay? Cenk and I might get into a debate about capitalism and monopolies. And we're gonna talk about a woman who murdered her husband, likely.
Woo, tyt.com/join.